Welcome to this edition of Dufferin Life. I'm your host, Teena Avery. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a very special lady joining me today, and it's with some very exciting news. We've got author Nancy Earley. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
It's wonderful, and I loved saying that. It was author Nancy Earley. So you just recently had a book release.
Yes.
And I'd love tell me all about it.
Well, you know what? So it was quite a process. The whole book took about 1.5 years, let's just say. And, it was the writing part of it and the creative part that all came together. But sort of towards the end, I've been trying to get some, how would you say it? Okay, let me step back a bit. What happened is, in the middle of all this, I had the book off to the publisher, and there was a paper shortage.
Oh, my goodness.
So I thought the book launch was going to be in the spring, and then the summer, and even the fall came and went, and there's no book. Despite this, I had a little draft copy of the book, and I sort of was feeling a little downhearted, I'm not going to lie. Mm-hmm. And I went in to see, I decided I was going to go to the town hall. I said I was going to have a meeting with Mayor Lisa Post, mm-hmm. and just give them the heads up of what I was doing.
Okay.
So I went in, I met with her. She flipped through the book. This is great. Where's your book launch? When is it? I said, being a little downhearted, I thought, no, I haven't made that plans yet. Just leave it with me.
Oh,
well, I'll tell you, by the time I got home, she contacted what I call the 3 power women of Orangeville. Nancy Frater, Darla Fraser from Orangeville Public Library, and Lisa Post and her team. And they just conjured up this book launch that was amazing. It was in the Orangeville Town Hall atrium. Mm-hmm. It was great. It was great. We had the town crier. It was during the last day of the market, so the town crier was up and doing the herald of, come on in. And so he sort of ushered like a Pied Piper, the people came in. And it was great. We had a full house. We had some guest speakers. Mayor Lisa Post spoke. Wayne Townsend, mm-hmm. the former curator for the Dufferin Museum and Archives. Darla spoke. David was the MC of the event.
David Nairn, yeah.
And oh my gosh, I'm forgetting somebody. But yeah, no, it was great. It was really good.
Okay, so for those of us who were not there, I think we need to ask Nancy what the name of her book is and what it's all about.
Well, so the whole event was about launching the book called Once Upon a Forest, Celebrating Orangeville's Early Years.
Okay.
So this is my second book in what I call the Once Upon a History series.
Okay.
And the idea behind it came because I had done a book for Alton, for the Alton Bicentennial, and the first print run sold out, even though it's an illustrated book for sort of children aged, grade 3 and up, but so many adults loved it. They bought it for a souvenir, for a keepsake, for a gift for Christmas for their grandchildren, and the grandchildren bought it for their grandparents kind of thing. And I thought, you know what, there's a real interest in this, mm-hmm. having an illustrated history book that would appeal to all ages. So this is the reason I got started on the second book.
Okay, so your first book was Once Upon a River.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so now let's talk about Once Upon a Forest and kind of what would people expect to see in the book.
So interestingly, both books for whatever reason end up having an environmental message.
Okay.
And it just kind of the way the story evolved. And for this one, because the trees, the forest in Orangeville in the early days really played a strong role in how the industry and it shaped the community. There was a coffin factory in Orangeville, mm-hmm. The lumber, even settlers, when they came to Orangeville, they couldn't own the land until they had cleared it all of trees.
Okay.
And so both for industry, for, the first cash crop for settlers was potash from the trees. So the trees played so many different roles in building this town, as the lumber and all mm-hmm. that building. But over the course of time, and by the turn of the century, by 1901 almost, the trees were gone, depleted. The river, our little Mill Creek that goes through town, that was once turning the mills. Mm-hmm. It was it's not just a trickle of its former self.
Right.
And so much had changed, and we really see how trees impacted sort of that development. Mm-hmm. And so it goes through and it talks about a little bit about that, the beginning of trees, how it developed, goes, and then to the depletion. And then, of course, it kind of comes back around, circles around to present day. And it talks about how Orangeville now is even from the 1930s, how they slowly started to bring trees back. Mm-hmm. And how even today, and the different organizations like Dodds and McNair, people know. They're featured in the book. They do a memorial forest every year.
Yes,
where
they do. Yes.
thousands of trees have been planted since they began to celebrate past loved ones that have passed. And Sustainable Orangeville does something. And this, so many ways that we're building back. And it's kind of a lesson for the readers to look at how the trees were there, now they were gone, and what we can do now to kind of bring them back. And at the end of the book, there's kind of a call to action to all young readers. This story of Orangeville continues, and one of the way it continues is you could plant a tree. And so there was, that was the good thing about the book launch too. The CVC donated like 30 trees for giveaways.
Oh, amazing.
So that tied in really nicely with the event.
And I think, I mean, and you said it coincidentally, it had an environmental message, but I think that that's so important.
Right.
I mean, and then whether it's, somebody coming on the show and talking about how we need to plant trees or what's happening to the forest or that sort of thing, from you writing a book, and there's so many different mediums that you have to, and we have to use all mediums to kind of spread the word. Right? To create that awareness, because we take a lot of things for granted now. We just, well, there's trees. We, you know what I mean? They're building over there. It doesn't really matter. But we take it for granted that, that the environment itself is not going to change with a smaller amount of trees. And you don't realize the impact of it.
Yes, and the lessons learned, right, from history to now. But it's not all just about the trees too. There's it's got some heroes and highlights and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different little tidbits in the book, for a little bit of something for everyone. And the other nice thing is I have to mention Kasia Charco was the illustrator for both books. And her illustrations are just beautiful. She's such a talented artist. And so the book also has a lot of landmarks in it too.
Okay.
So that's kind of nice. It's, because who else, a typical publisher would never probably do something like this, because, you're not going to market to a town of 30,000 people. But so doing this kind of thing lets us also make it very local. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that means so much to everybody, that it is, it's about our community. It's about the history of our community.
Right.
And I think that as we move on and we're doing things online, and I think it's still so important to talk about the history of where things came from, how things have changed, and how that's affecting it now and where we need to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And Wayne Townsend, he wrote the foreword to the book, and he makes a really good point by, when we share our history, our local history, we're also, in a way, we're kind of bringing the community together again.
Right.
Like we have a shared history now. It brings community. This is our story. And whether you've been here a long time or you just moved. And I think that's true. This is your town now. And
absolutely.
And your heritage.
Yeah, and we live in such an amazing community. I've been here 27 years or something like that, or 26 years. I don't know. I've been here a long time, and we're not going to age me and tell you exactly how long. But I mean, this is my home. This is where I raised my family. This is, this is where I am, and I find it even more interesting than just some of the things that you can, that are just more generalized about the about outside our community.
Well, it was funny because at the book launch, I say, I was sort of born in Orangeville, raised in Alton, but I was born in Orangeville. I said, my first, Mrs. Malouk's nursery school. And I said that, and someone in the audience goes, Mrs. Malouk's nursery school, I was there. It's like, oh, that's funny. And I said, I went to high school here. I had my first job as a cub reporter at the Orangeville Banner, and also at the Orangeville Citizen I worked later, and then Theatre Orangeville I worked there for a while. I had the musical that I did was presented there. So this is, and I'm one of those rare people that can say, the same doctor that gave birth to me gave birth to my daughter.
Right.
That birthed my daughter. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. It's like Orangeville used to be such a small town too, right?
But you know what? It still is. Like, you can go out somewhere and just realize how small of a town it still is. Whereas when I first moved here, there weren't all these restaurants. I think Walmart hadn't been open very long, and I would come in from my job in Mississauga, and everything was closed by I would get home at 6:30, and it's like all you could order was a pizza. Like, there was there weren't all these restaurants and delivery services, and it's just, and then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's so big, but yet it's not.
No.
Like, it has such a warm feeling that I don't think it matters, how many people come into the community, that I think it's just amazing.
And we're all pulled together by that downtown core, too. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when we're talking about this lovely book that you wrote, so the first one that you wrote, Once Upon a River. So where did the whole concept of this come from?
So it was, I'll never forget that day. It was January of 2020, before we knew how crazy the whole world was going to get. And Alton was celebrating its 200th anniversary, and one of the event coordinators, Betty Starr, comes into the library where I work and said, Nancy, we need a book, hopefully an illustrated book on the local history. We want to get the families and the kids and adults sort of tied into why we're celebrating this bicentennial. And I said, I don't have anything. Sorry. And so she left, I'm sure as disappointed as I was that I didn't have any books in the library to offer her. And then I thought, wait a minute, I'm a writer. Maybe there's something I can do. And as the idea started to germinate, I thought, wait a minute, there's a challenge to this. I'm going to need an illustrator. And I'll tell you, just the way that serendipity in the world can be. A Canadian award-winning illustrator lived a stone's throw from the library. So I worked up my nerve, and I finally called her. I said, Kasia, listen, I don't know, you don't really know me, but I've got this idea for a project. Would you be interested in working with me? I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, but she jumped right in, no questions up. And because I'd seen her books in the library, it said illustrated by Kasia Charco, and I lives in Alton, so I knew she was there. But she jumped in, and her work is great, just great. But So here we go. So now I have an illustrator, now I have a book, and the Caledon Heritage Foundation called me up and said, we heard you're doing a book, we'd like to help you. So they helped offset some of the printing costs, and I got another sponsor through just the networking that you do. And okay, so now it's September 2020 for the event, and of course we're in the middle of COVID, so it didn't happen. And yet I had boxes and boxes and boxes of books.
Right.
And so what happened is, again, I put it out on Facebook that I've written this book. Oh my gosh. Ping, 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 the Facebook just went crazy.
Right.
I sold out the first print run within 6 months.
That's
amazing. And like I
amazing.
said, that made me think, wait a minute, there's some interest in this kind of thing. And so we did do the celebration in 2022, and again, we did a second print run, and like I said, I got this call. I got calls actually from Bolton and Erin and different communities saying, you should do one for us. And this is what I said in the book launch. I knew that if I was ever going to do another one, it was going to be for Orangeville, because this is my second hometown, like as you say, yeah.
Absolutely. So we've got about 1 minute left. Are we going to expect some more books in the series?
You know what? I think so. I'm not sure what community I'm going to do next. Maybe I've teased with the idea of I'm going to hit Toronto, you know what I mean? And maybe get a publisher, because, this is my project.
Right.
But if I was talking to Nancy Frater, she says, maybe we can get, now that you have something if you go to a center that has a bigger population, there's more of a chance that you might get a publisher with this kind of thing. So yeah, if not, I'll do it myself.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. And if you're looking to get a copy of Once Upon a Forest, you can get that at Booklore right here in Orangeville. So make sure that you do. Nancy, I want to thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I think it would make a great Christmas gift to give to someone. So yes.
Absolutely. And thank you for tuning in, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
My daughter is 7 years old and has a frenemy. They have play dates that always end up in a fight or tears. His friend bosses her around and treats her poorly, but she still wants to be her friend. What's a parent to do?
I I would let them acquiesce to a certain amount, and then, when they're at this age, you still need to be supervising their play dates. So I might step in, not to correct the bossy child, but it's my child that I'm concerned about. I would just expose her to other people, teach her to have a voice, and let her know that she's got options.
On the next episode of Cinema Scene, Dave Voigt of In the Seats is back, and we're talking about biopics and bye to Best Buy.
Welcome back to Dufferin Life. Thanks for staying with us. If you're just tuning in, oh my goodness, you're tuning in at a great time. I was laughing my head off before we came on screen. I have one of my favorite ladies here, the absolutely beautiful Debbie Collins.
Oh, stop it. I will give you 20 minutes to cut that out, Tina. Really. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. It's been a while since you've been on my show.
It is a while.
And you've got some exciting news where I'm always a very big supporter of Theatre Orangeville, but there's a show coming up, and I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's called, there I am, it's called Cinderella If the Shoe Fits, and it is a holiday panto, and I am co-writing with David Nairn, and it's been a very exciting process so far. We're very happy with the script that we have. We've had 3 workshops where we've had some of the actors from our cast have been able to make it. Some other actors have come in to help us hone the script and tweak it. And we're pretty excited about it.
I'm pretty excited about it. I know I'm definitely going to have a look at it, or going to see it. But before we get started, please explain to those of us who may not know, what is a panto?
Oh, yes. Panto is a wonderful holiday tradition, and it actually comes from Britain. And has been brought over here. I mean, for years, Russ Petty has been doing it in downtown Toronto. My very first equity show that I ever did was a panto.
Okay.
And Ross Petty and Karen Kane were in it, and some British stars as well, Eric Sykes and Barry Gosney. And see, those names I remember, because that's my early days.
Right.
And I'm telling you, it was so much fun. I got to sing and dance and act and be over the top acting, which is, let's face it, my specialty, Tina.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do. And there are some traditions. For instance, there is always a villain who we encourage the audience to boo. That's me. I'll be playing the evil stepmother.
Nice.
We have Dame or Dames, in this case, our 2 ugly stepsisters are men in dame clothing. And we have a hero, and we have Cinderella, of course, who is our ingenue. And then we have a character, and we speak directly to the audience, just like I'm doing now. And we encourage them to participate in the show.
Okay.
And that's what is so much fun for kids. I say kids of all ages, for the kid in all of us, really. Because who doesn't like to scream and yell during a show? Really.
Well, I mean, and we do. I mean, we go to the theater and we're always so well behaved unless we're told that we don't have to be well behaved. And that doesn't happen often because,
that's right.
And I think that the experience, and I've never been to a panto, so I'm very excited about
You're
this.
going to love it.
The experience of going to the theater, and I always say it's like you transport yourself into whatever's happening on the stage. You forget everything that's going on in your life. You just kind of focus and you have that experience. But to have that experience and be able to participate in it is like, I'm uber excited.
It's so much fun, and it's a wonderful sort of starter kit for students and kids to come to the theater.
Right.
Because they love this stuff. I'm going to come out and say, okay, every time I come out here, I want you to boo as loudly as you can. Let's give it a shot. And so, you call that booing? Come on. Let's hear it, So we really get the audience involved. It's going to be so much fun. The audience is really the 7th character. We have 6 onstage characters. The audience is the 7th when they show up.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
it's
amazing. And we should clarify, the show is called Cinderella If the Shoe Fits. And it's going to be starting November 30th to December 23rd, Theatre Orangeville. And I'm going to do my usual. You can get tickets at www.theatreorangeville.ca or call the box office at 519-942-3423. They should be paying me for how well I can say all of that after all these years, right?
Of course they should. You're an asset, Teena.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a big supporter of Theatre Orangeville, but I do have
know.
to ask you.
Yes.
Because David comes on the show frequently. He's quite the character, and him and I get along really, really well, and you and I get along really, really well. What is it truly like writing something like this with David and Aaron?
Oh my gosh, it's been an incredible experience. Co-writing can be fantastic or it can be terrifying. And basically, I've been trying to talk David into doing this for quite a while now.
Okay.
So he finally listened to me and he said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we create this together? I said, I would love that. So he said, maybe you could start us off with an outline because I've been doing panto, as I said, was my first professional show in theater, and that was a while ago.
Just around,
Just
a few days ago.
a couple of years ago, and so I've had a great deal of experience performing in panto and choreographing and you know, adding jokes and things like that, as we do. It's the type of show it is, where it sort of takes on a life of its own. So I said that would be great. He said, why don't you go home and write an outline? So I started, and I thought, I don't know how to write an outline. I'm just going to write the first draft of the script. And I brought it into him, and he read it, and he said, this is going to be fun. And then the two of us sat and put our heads together and tweaked it and rearranged it and added to it and took things away from it and just started creating this show that I think is going to be a terrific piece of entertainment.
Yeah. It just sounds so much fun. But so because the audience is technically the seventh character.
Yeah.
So when you're going into rehearsals and that sort of thing, does that make it more difficult because you don't have that support of the audience? Because you would feed off the audience, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Well, it makes a huge difference. And there are some tried and true bits that are in the show that we've written in, and I can, you know, and all our cast, by the way, is sensational. I'm not going to tell you who they are. That's a surprise. You got to buy your tickets to find out. But we've got this incredible company, and they're excited to be participating in this too. And some of them are new to panto as well. So as we're in rehearsal, we will also be, you know, part of my responsibility here is to also teach what this is. And you know, David's, you know, going to be directing us in such a way as to, you know, there will, stop guys, hold for laughter. There will be laughter or response or mayhem here, you know. So we kind of know where the laughs are going to be. We know where we're asking them to participate. So it actually, after the rehearsal process, it'll be so nice to have an audience in there doing that.
Right.
So.
Or I could just come to every rehearsal and be your audience.
I would love it.
I'm pretty loud and.
I love you for that. That would be great.
And then I'll come the night, you know, opening night, and I'll be the loudest one there because I'll know exactly. Oh, it's coming. Just wait, it's coming.
Yeah, wait till you see this part. Yeah, that's my mom in the audience. She does that. She's like, that's my daughter up there, you know.
Oh, I can only imagine. She must be so proud of you.
Oh, she's just wonderful. Yeah.
Well, that's it's special too when you have your parents coming out. Like, I mean, my parents were my biggest fans watching this show, and I used to always, you know, throw a shout out to them because, you know, they'd be like, oh, or what it used to be, if I was, for a while in my career as an event planner, I was in the newspaper a lot, like the local papers. I was always at events and whatever, and they would always take pictures. Well, my father would call me to tell me I was in the paper, and then he would cut out each little article or picture, whatever. So when he passed, we were going through everything, and I found this envelope of just me. And it was like, oh, here, like, you know, my son was in the paper, whatever. But it's this whole barrage of just like me, and I was like, oh my gosh.
That's so wonderful. Isn't that great to have that kind of support? We're lucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are really lucky that we had that. My dad was the same way. And so my mom's carrying on the tradition.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm sure she'll be front row center for
you
opening.
bet she will. Yeah.
Being the loudest one there. So how long do you normally rehearse before something goes on stage?
We have a 2-week plus a couple of days rehearsal period.
Okay.
And we start by working on music. It is a musical, by the way, with choreography and fantastic harmonies and fantastic musical arrangements.
Oh my gosh.
By Nick Mufasa, who was our young prodigy musical director.
Yes.
Love Nick.
Love him.
And so he's probably at home right now arranging those songs so that first day of rehearsal, we're going to come in, we're going to work music. and there'll be our version of some songs as well,
Okay.
just so you know. And so we start with that, and then we move into blocking the show, and we do that for a couple of weeks, and then we get it under our belts, and we learn the the story and the characters and all of that, and then we take it into the theater, and then we do our technical rehearsals there, and then
Cue to cue.
Cue to cue.
There
Look
we
at
go.
you.
Look at me. It's like I know what I'm talking
You
about.
totally do.
But let's explain that. So what is cue to cue?
Oh, Cue to Cue is it's a long day of technical rehearsals. So we've been, doing our thing in the rehearsal hall. We bring it into the theater, put it on the stage, and now it's time for the lights, the sound cues, all of the musicians to be there. Quick changes, things like that. So we add in all the magical elements now that make it a beautiful spectacle. And so that takes, we call them technical days, tech days or technical rehearsals, and it just takes time. But because the technical team at Theatre Orangeville is so brilliant, and they are, I'm not kidding for 1 second here, they know their craft so well that it always runs so smoothly, and it's just such a pleasure to see all the, all the lights and all of the effects and the set too that Becky Morris is designing for us. And oh my gosh, she is an artist.
She is, and then Lisa LaHue just takes it and builds it, and you're like, wow, that's phenomenal.
Oh my gosh, you put all those talented people together, and they come up with brilliance every single time. It's just wonderful, and it really is the magic that makes it the spectacle that audiences will love.
We've got a couple minutes left, so I wanted to ask you, so what is it like when you've written it and you're acting in it? Is that a bigger challenge? That must be a bigger challenge for you.
Well, it is, because I've got to resist the temptation to say, oh, this should be like, no. You never give another actor notes. You never do that. It doesn't matter if you're the writer. If you're the director, that's what you do. Right. But that will be the challenge for me, because as I'm trying to also, as I say, teach what this should be, and I want to lead by example, that'll be my challenge. Right. But also, to be in that character will be my challenge. Take off the hat of the writer, put on the horns of the evil stepmother, Oh
my gosh, that's got to be the best role ever.
The villain is so fun. So fun to be the villain.
Absolutely.
Just get people to yell at you and then you just abuse them.
Even if it's not a panto, just yell at the villains. Let's just yell at the villains. Yeah. Can you imagine? I'm just going off on a whole different tangent about sitting in the theater, nice and quiet. Everyone's sitting there listening, and Tina's going boo, like
I remember a panto I did years ago. We used to ask the students to write letters and say, if you have any questions for the actors, we'll get back to you. But we love getting your letters. And this one little boy wrote in that he loved that we spoke to the audience, because other shows he's just been ignored. The actors just ignore him. So, I kept that one.
Debbie, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you all the best of luck for the show.
Tina.
And I can't wait to see it.
I can't wait for you to see it too.
And make sure you go out to see it. And until next time, bye-bye for now. There we go.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.